Okay, call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Lytle on November 18th, 2024. Roll call.
Chairman Alex Sawicki,
Here.
District 4 Board Member Kenneth Samsel,
Here.
and District 5 Board Member William
Here.
Simmons. Both members, Albert Medina and Mike Egler, are absent.
Okay. This public hearing is to consider a public hearing concerning an ordinance of the City of Lytle, Texas, amending Section 46-1, definitions of Article 1 in general of Chapter 46, zoning of the Code of Ordinance by adding a definition of for data center and amending Section 46-355 use regulations of Division 8 Industry District and Article 5 District and District regulations of Chapter 46 zoning of the Code of Ordinance by adding data center as an allowable use within the industrial zoning district. Second item is conduct a public hearing concerning a final plat of Lytle MHC Mobile Park Phase 1 and 2 and a plot containing 29.804 acres, 16.896 acres being a portion of that, 21.237 acres tract recorded in volume 811, page 794 of the deed records of Atascosa County, Texas, and 12.908 acres being all of that called 12.934 acres recorded in the volume 699, page 170 of the deed records of Atascosa County, Texas, in the J.B. Gothman survey number 512, and inclusive of the a 0.041 of an acre right of way.
What's the time on the first public hearing?
It was 6:30.
33. Okay. All right. So I'll just focus on the first one, and then we'll go through that public hearing, and then offer any public comments on that one, close that public hearing, and then go into the second one. On the first public hearing for the evening, city staff is presenting this particular text amendment for consideration by this body, as well as ultimately city council after the recommendation that this board will give. We have been approached by some developments in the area, and so as an approach and working with them, we're looking to add data center as a definition in our ordinances. And so you'll find in your packet a copy of the red line version of our definitions, which is that section 46-1. And so looking at some different cities around Texas, since this is becoming a more popular occurrence, we adopted this particular, or we're asking to adopt this particular definition. So data center is a structure or multiple structures that house a large grouping of network computer servers typically used by businesses, governments, and organizations for remote storage, processing, and distribution of large amounts of data. This definition may include additional electrical substation requirements to be considered and allowed as a component of the primary data center use. So that's the first part of this particular public hearing. The second part of that is amending section 46-355, which is our I, or industrial zoning district. And so we do currently have an adopted industrial zoning district. However, Nowhere on our zoning map has council designated any areas as industrial zoning districts. So anytime someone would come forward, whether it is a data center or anything else that is shown on this allowable use, they would have to come before this body to ask for a rezoning of their property. And then ultimately city council would have to approve or deny that request as well. So we feel like at this point, adding this definition and adding this particular allowable use is not really harmful, given we don't have anywhere that they can currently stick. And obviously we'll work with individual property owners that decide to come forward to place it at that time. But this is, again, we've been working with some developers in the area, and this is something that they have requested. And so as a part of that, we're pushing this forward. So I'll leave it at that. Of course, we can open the floor to anybody in favor or opposed, and then we can close that public hearing.
Public hearing is open at 6:36. Anybody have any comments, questions?
We do not have an industrial district at this time.
So I'll answer that in the action item. Yeah. So I'll answer that in the action item. Just because this is the public hearing. So duly noted on your comment, and I'll make sure to address it. Yeah.
Yes.
Are there any size limitations or
I-
kilowatt usage limitations on data centers?
Yeah, so I can definitely answer that when we get to the action item, and yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay, but at least you're getting them out now, so we can make a note of it, and I'll answer that for you.
And to further that, is there a minimum square footage?
Got it.
What kind of instruments would be on this data center? Computer?
So I think if those questions, let's have them for the action item. This is a time for the public to ask any questions or concerns or speak in favor or against the amendments. We'll close the public hearing, and then under item 4A, we'll be able to ask those questions and answer those just like any other time. Okay? Yeah. Sure, go right ahead.
Didn't anticipate this one, but Kevin Collins, I'll speak as briefly as possible. I think that the city's doing a good job of looking forward and thinking about how they can make the city of Lytle an attractive place for certain kinds of development. I think for this group, the thing to understand is that a data center will kind of look like a warehouse building, right? It'll be an industrial building. There won't be any windows. It will be filled with computers, servers, so that when people are getting on the internet, they can get on the internet more quickly. It will be a good source of revenue, I'm sure, for the city. I think when you think forward as to what unanticipated consequences you might have, there are a lot of environmental issues with data centers. They use a lot of energy. They use water. They do generate some waste. And so I don't think that's a reason to vote against the proposal based on whatever the city staff recommends. But that would be the things I would be thinking about is, these are large industrial rectangular buildings that will have environmental impacts, and wherever they end up getting placed, we'll need to be aware of what they're being placed next to, which is more what I'm interested in on your next item. Thank you.
Is that it? Okay. Close the public hearing at 6:39 and take action
We'll just go to the next public hearing.
to the next one.
Yeah, public
Okay.
hearing B. So you've already read it, so I'll go ahead and I'll just give a brief introduction, and then I know we do have the owner / developer here, and then I'm sure there's people to speak as well. So we do have before you this evening a final plat request for the Lytle MHC Mobile Park Phase 1 and 2. This, of course, is property in question is located off of Benton City Road, or FM 3175. Two particular phases. If you notice on their application, they did indicate that there's a proposal of 175 manufactured home lots. So the residential lots was scratched off by the applicant on that and placed there. And so the only thing that staff would like to draw attention to, and of course we can get into this more in the action as well, but the engineer, the city's engineer, has reviewed the plat and does find it to be complete in accordance with the subdivision ordinances. However, there is specifically some issues that staff has raised and has communicated on a couple occasions of times we've sent back and forth some correspondence on this final plat submission, and it relates to the distinction between manufactured homes and mobile homes that for zoning purposes. And so we would strongly encourage from a staff level that when we get to the action of this item, that our recommendation based on that would be to deny with that as the reasoning. But of course, your options are you could approve with conditions, or deny, and then your recommendation, whichever those were, would be forwarded to City Council for their consideration on the 25th. So I will step aside and again let the public come up and speak on this particular item, but didn't want to relay that, and I'll be.
Okay, Ben?
Yeah, I guess I'll speak on this. I didn't really come to speak, I just listened, but I told you to sign in. But I do have an opinion on the proposal. My question is if developers such as these gentlemen or myself or anybody else comes along and presents a plan to the city and the city engineer and it meets all the criteria, why a but? Why is there an extra step? Why are we in front of you guys? If y'all have laid out the rules and these guys have met that criteria, why are we having this meeting? Why can't they issue the permit and move forward? Why there are still objections if you meet all the criteria? That's my question in regards, in general, not just specifically to this particular issue. So, thank you.
Ms. Collins?
Hi, so Kevin Collins, I'll speak on behalf of both my mother, Gay Collins, and myself. Keep it to 6 minutes or less. To answer, I think, Mr. Ramirez's question, the reason why is democracy, and that's the three of you. And you have served such an important role in this process to ensure that a project that might be technically sufficient, although it's arguable this one isn't, but let's just assume for a moment it were, that you're listening to the community and making sure that this is the right kind of project for this community and these neighbors. And this group has heard from me before. This group has heard from others in the audience before. This isn't the right project. There doesn't seem to be demand for 175 mobile homes or manufactured homes, whatever you want to call them, in the city of Lytle today. There's a desire on the part of an ambitious developer to do that, and I understand it's a project. He's invested time and energy into it, but that doesn't mean it's right. And so for the reasons that staff stated to you earlier, we strongly encourage this commission to deny the formal plat plan as your action tonight. I think that the description between manufactured homes and mobile homes is an important issue, but let me give you a couple of other issues to think about. Number one, my family sold both of these lots, I think, to Mr. Harris many years ago. And I've talked to the city about whether or not I've never gotten a clear answer from the city as to whether or not the city met the Texas Open Meeting Act rules when it rezoned this land that's for 100+ years has been single family residential to B2. And so I've told you about that before, and that's not really before you. I just remind you that there's this lingering concern about whether or not the city can even approve this project for legal reasons. But beyond that, just come back to what you do. And you think about is this a good project? Is this plat plan an appropriate plat plan? Do we need 175 of these units, regardless of what kinds of units they are? And if we were to move forward with this, which again, I hope that you don't, is there enough buffering? Because the city's plan, the comprehensive plan, describes the need for a buffer when you take about 30 acres and drop in 175 new manufactured homes or mobile homes and all of the people that are going to come with that and the traffic that are going to come with that. My mother's property runs the entire length of the north side. She shares the entire fence line. And, you know, I would like to see this denied. And if it comes up again, we really look at this proposed plat or this proposed plan and think about things like wider setback requirements, requiring a park between, you know, on the border, the whole L shape, not only my mother's front fence line, but the fence line above it too, because there's lots of homes over there. Requiring the developer to install and maintain an 8-foot privacy fence of durable material over the, planting trees and other sound diminishing devices, designating the park area like I talked about, and then looking at whether or not 175 is the right number for this area. You know, that's an arterial street. It connects to 35. There's not a lot, and it's going to take a lot of work to be able to get ways, you know, cuts for the road for people to get in and out of this thing if it were to come to fruition. That's something I would worry about. And, you know, finally, and I believe that Mr. Harris has given Mr. Homer authority to act on his behalf, so there's no issue there. But he doesn't own one of these two lots, right? And so he's asking you for a plan, a comprehensive plan that maximizes the number of plots that he can use to maximize his return on his investment. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the right project. And why not break this up into two pieces, if nothing else, and see sort of what do we get with the first phase, and then do we even need the second phase? So there's a lot of just reasonable, common sense things that this group can do. Number one, deny this. Number two, think about how you make it better for Lytle and what Lytle truly needs. That's what we need. We need that. We need good, sensible review from the three of you. And so I strongly encourage you to follow staff's advice on this and deny it. And if it comes back up again, you know, let's roll our sleeves up and see if there's a project that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Casey?
All right. Thank you, everyone. My name is Casey Homer. I represent Lytle MHC Real Estate. And that's correct. We are intending to build 175 new manufactured home lots where we can sell manufactured homes. This is an extension of the existing community. So the existing community is 117 units. We maintain relatively high occupancy, showing a strong demand. There's also about 30+% of the manufactured home dealers within a 1-mile radius of here in Lytle. And there aren't that many places to place a manufactured home, let alone one where you can rent the dirt and buy the home. And so we think this is a unique opportunity to provide current and future residents of Lytle a high quality, efficient opportunity for home ownership here in Lytle. This project will bring about $1 million in impact fees for water and sewer improvements. We'll also be paying about over $500,000 in water rights dedications, which is something that has changed over the course of this project. We will be incorporating buffer as required by our codes and ordinances. We've spent a lot of time and a lot of money to ensure that our plan meets the codes and requirements of the city of Lytle. This February would mark 3 years that we've been in this process, going back and forth, trying to ensure that we meet all the requirements of the city of Lytle, which we have, our plan now does. However, throughout the last 6 months, there's been a lot of back and forth with our final plat application, mainly due to the difference between mobile home and manufactured home. So a mobile home would be a home built before 1976, and our B2 zoning at the time of starting this process allowed for a mobile home park. Those terms, mobile home, HUD code manufactured home, have been used interchangeably within the city of Lytle's codes and ordinances up until very recently. It's been adopted to change and clarify those, which I think is a good move. However, the time to make those changes would have been prior to the start of good faith work with the city on our behalf to get to this point with this project. So unless we want to split hairs over the difference between mobile home and a HUD code manufactured home, we've been very transparent throughout this process. Earlier this year, they changed the allowable uses, removing mobile home park from B2, forcing us into non-conforming. A couple months ago, they passed an ordinance that clarified more specifically and distinctly the difference between HUD code and manufactured home. However, through this process, we've been very transparent of our intent to provide HUD code manufactured home in this community, as it is a higher quality form of dwelling. If we were to proceed now with a mobile home, I don't think that's to the benefit of the community or the city. And that is in accordance with the codes and ordinances and zoning that we are allowed to do. But I think it's important that we are serving a higher quality product. And so thus a HUD code manufactured home is a far superior product that's really in the best interest of the current community as well as those in the future. Thank you.
Tammy?
Hello, I'm Tammy McDonald, and I've been here 3 years, right along with Casey. I've actually lived here most of my life. And the real question and the reason we're here in front of you is because how will this impact our community is the real reason we need to deny this. We will have impacts, not only from a school point of view, because that's where I'm coming from. I'm a teacher, but the overcrowdedness and the high density of this housing. The zoning for a house, there's a certain size lot that they have to fit into, and if you want to have a mobile home, you have to get all your neighbors to sign in that it's okay. You also, if you have to build a home or to use smaller lots, that has to have permission too. So we're coming here allowing 175, and these houses are right up next to each other. So my back fence, there'll be a trailer within where I can say hello, there's a window right here from there, and they may say, okay, a car can park there, and that's enough space for a car to park, but that is really close together. So we're bringing in transient owners. They're going to come and go, a lot of them, and there's a lot of houses. I tried to write down my main points so I could get them done in the 3 minutes. The overcrowding of our schools is my main concern. The transient community that it usually brings in, and the allowance of so many houses. So if he was talking about bringing in, let's break it up into acre, houses, then that would be a whole different story we're having right now. We're worried about public, utilities, water, sewage, a lot of things that he did talk about that they're going to try to address. Again, traffic is a problem. We have electricity problems. There's also the crime and the safety that comes along with that. So if they build their own roads, the police department doesn't man their roads. That's private property. So if a crime happens, of course, they can go into the house and figure out the crime. But on their streets and all that, if kids are running around, who's going to man that? I'm asking you to deny, because that's what's best for our community. And I would like to see the demand that he's won. I mean, there is no demand here. There's been opposition for the whole 3 years, and I think longer. So, thank you.
I can't even read the last name.
Hello, my name is Mayun Charles Vogt. Nice to be here tonight. Actually, I came to listen also, but I'm very glad I came because I believe not too long ago, this subject was brought up and we had agreed to deny. Now, I don't know why it's coming up again, but I can tell you that it's not appropriate. It is not a good decision. Sorry, Mr. Casey, it is not a good decision to put 175 of mobile homes there. I live not too far from that area and I know exactly where he's talking about. And for some of the reasons that she mentioned, I think 1 acre homes, regular homes, will do a lot better. It will enhance the community and it'll be very beautiful. So these compact kind of close thing, I don't know. It's not going to work. Density, crime, I mean, to me, it will depreciate rather than appreciate the whole area. That is how I feel, and I am saying denial is what we should have. Thank you very much.
If nobody else has anything to say, close the public hearing.
Could y'all just go out and do it somewhere further away from town, or?
It could be. However, this has been the project we've been working on for 3 years here in Lytle to serve the current and future Lytle residents.
I mean, could you just get 2 or 3 miles?
I don't know land 2-3 miles.
I've got some I'll sell you. Yeah, I do, I'll talk to you. Anyway.
Any other questions? Happy to answer any questions.
Did you come up to this podium?
Can we go ahead and close the
I'd
public
like-
hearing first, and if there's questions?
Already closed the public hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
6:58.
Go to the first one, and then we'll come back to the answer any questions.
Okay, sounds good. I'll come back.
We get to ask questions.
I know, we're gonna, any questions you have for myself, for him, for any of it, we will address it in the action item, so, yes, sir.
Okay, open session, the action items, consideration and possible action to recommend approval or denial to the city council concerning a ordinance of the city of Lytle, Texas, amending section 46-1, definitions of Article 1 in general of Chapter 46 zoning of the Code of Ordinance by adding a definition for data center and amending section 46-355 use regulations or division 8 I industry district and Article 5 districts and district regulations for Chapter 46 zoning of the Code of Ordinance by adding data center as an allowable use within the industrial zoning district.
All right, so commission members, just to answer some of the questions that came up. So the industrial zoning district exists on paper in the zoning ordinance, but does not, if you look at the zoning map, does not currently exist anywhere where any properties inside the city are zoned as such. So what that means is, to answer your question, is if somebody would like to put anything that's allowable within that industrial zoning district, including data centers, if council ultimately approves it, would be that they would have to come back before this board. Notifications would have to go out to property owners within 200 feet of that property and be notified that somebody has requested a change for that property to industrial. So again, it doesn't exist anywhere currently on the zoning map, so no properties are currently zoned this. It's just the zoning district exists in theory in the ordinances. As far as basic regulations associated, so the industrial zoning district does have certain setbacks, just like any other zoning district we have, including our residential single family zoning district has similar setback requirements, and those are all laid out in the industrial zoning district. So any particular use that would ultimately go into industrial zoning district would have to follow those restrictions. If they wanted something outside of that, they would have to get a variance from city council, as city council operates in that fashion. Just to name a few, so we do have in the front yard, the street less than 50 foot in width, and there's certain distances from other residential zoning districts, I think 20 feet on any side from any residential zoning districts. To piggyback on Mr. Collins, yes, what these buildings look like is very much like a typical warehouse. There's no windows. Typically, they're generally 2 to 3 stories tall. Typically, you don't see them bigger than that. And they just house a lot of computers and machinery that goes along with that. They do take considerable power and water. And that's one thing that obviously, depending on somebody coming in, I can tell you the properties that we currently have, there's very few properties that is, currently in the city of Lytle that's going to want to stick a data center just because they need large properties, right? They need access to water, which, as we know, is scarce. And so anything that moves forward would have to be something that would worked out, in some sort of development agreements and things like that. As far as the electrical and those water consumptions, it varies depending on the end user. So typically these developers don't know their end user. They work with multiple types of companies, Google, Microsoft, things like that, that ultimately will determine how much power and how much water is needed to suffice for those, for what they ultimately want to build out those properties for. So that just kind of gives you a general sense of that particular industrial. Again, tonight, the only thing you're considering is would you like to recommend to council whether to add that definition in there and to add it as an allowable use so that going forward, if somebody approached us, they would have the ability to rezone their property to industrial to allow for those data centers. Okay. Hopefully all that makes sense.
So it's just a name for a new business potential.
Yeah, for a business type. It's a type of business. So the zoning, each zoning district allows certain uses, and data center is a particular use. Around the state, typically you see them in industrial zoning districts. And what else, you can look in here. So everything else in the industrial zoning district is cement and lime manufacture, petroleum refinery. I mean, it's things that truly are an industry type related business. And so this would just be the allowance of a business to go into an industrial zoning district that is a data center, if they chose
So
to.
does this mean every time a business, say we develop an industrial district
Mhm.
and allocate land, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we decide that every business that goes in, say Surf Pro wants to come in,
Mhm.
and we have to come back to the zoning board to add that.
No,
new
so there's certain things, and the way our zoning districts are laid out currently is if you read the industrial zoning district, it does allow for lesser type uses to also be located in there. So as long as it fits within the other uses that are laid out in that zoning district, then there would not be any issue. It's an allowable use. You would not see it. The only time you're going to see it in this particular instance, because we're talking the industrial zoning district, would be if somebody truly wants to zone their property industrial. That's when you'll see it. And at that time, obviously, they would have a reason why they're wanting to rezone it, and they would tell you at that time. So,
Any other questions? No more questions. I need a motion whether to accept or deny the amendment to 46-1 definition of the article in general of Chapter 46 zoning of the Code of Ordinance by adding a definition for data center and amending Section 46-355 using regulations of Division 8I Industry District and of Article 5 District and District Regulations of Chapter 46 zoning of the Code of Ordinance by adding data center as an allowable use within the industrial zoning district.
So move.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Pardon?
To accept. Recommend approval.
Okay, ayes have it. Approved. Okay, on the second section, considering and possible action of recommending approval or denial to the city council concerning a final plat of Lytle MHC Mobile Home Park, Phase 1 and 2, a plot containing 29.804 acres, 16.896 acres being of a portion of that 21.237 acre tract recorded in volume 811, page 794 of the deeds of records of Atascosa County, Texas, and 12.908 acres being of all that called 12.934 acres recorded in volume 699, page 170 of the deed of records of Atascosa County in the J.B. Goffman survey number 512 and inclusive of the 0.041 of an acre right-of-way destination or description.
Any questions? Obviously, I know you had some questions for Casey as well, Mr. Simmons.
Yeah, just time for questions
Yep.
to him.
This is, yep.
Come
Any
up.
questions for myself or Mr. Homer as the owner?
I was looking at the plat and in fact, all this information, this in particular.
Yes, sir.
And I have a number of questions on it. First off, towards the residential areas, I'd like to know what kind of voice or what kind of sound barrier that's going to be built between the mobile home park and the residential area that's presently there. It goes on two different sides.
Mhm. Right, and so all of our plans have been submitted in accordance with,
I
Lytle's
wanna know-
codes and ordinance. I can tell you what we typically do and planning to do is typically we like to build and we've talked about this before, building a type of game fence that has the opportunity for vegetation to grow through it. One of the, if you can tell on there are standard setbacks, and then there's room for utilities. So it's not like the homes are a couple feet from the fence line. I mean,
How tall
there's.
is it?
I'm sorry?
How tall is it? Will it be?
I think it's 8 feet is what we typically do. And so I have another community in Von Army, and we have that similar game fence. It takes time for vegetation to grow through it. But that's what we've done in the past.
Okay, so it's not a sound barrier fence?
So a sound barrier, so I'm curious, if you're talking like the sound barrier where they build around trains, those are typically thick concrete, walls.
Like they have on the highways?
That's what you see in the main cities between residential and a freeway. You see these
Right.
6 or 8 foot concrete barriers.
Right, there's not going to be 30,000 vehicles per day driving through our community, which is the reason for those barriers. There's no trains coming through. We're not creating that kind of incremental volume. And so we typically like to dress it up. We want to have a barrier where people can't be going back and forth. Love the visibility of vegetation. That's just a preference of mine. But it needs to be, a satisfactory perimeter fence. That's definitely necessary. And if it's something the city wants to consider amending, that barrier, that's something I think y'all can consider as a city.
Well, the residents want to be assured that that fence will keep people from going over it and under it and through it.
Me too. We have the same interest there. I don't want people coming in outside of our entrances, and let alone doing anything, other than using our intended entranceways. We're going to be spending a lot of money on expanding the entryways and our roads and our turn lanes off of Benton City Road. We want people to use it.
And how far is it from the mobile home park to the fence
It's 10 to
the
15.
fence where the residential area is?
So the fence, so I don't know, on the other side of the fence, I can tell you on our side, so we have the standard setbacks.
How far from the other side of the fence then?
What do you mean? Where
From the
Other-
fence to the residential? Is there a barrier?
there is there are properties in between. There's like kind of one corner, I think, in your neighborhood where it gets close to the corner. And then there's,
So from that fence to the first trailer, how far would that be?
So
I mean,
the
are we
standard-
talking about 50 feet or 15 feet?
so there's standard setback 10 feet. Then there's the utilities, which is another 5, I think. So about 5 to 10, or
5 to
10
10 feet?
10 to 15. But then again, it depends on the home. Some of the homes are shorter than other homes.
That's not much room.
Well, then there's a fence, there's a barrier. And again, we're building it in accordance with Lidl's codes and ordinances. And if that's something that needs to be changed, something y'all can consider, yes.
I'm still confused exactly where is this? South of 35 off of the city road?
where it is on this map.
It's right next to El
Across the
Camino
street
Real.
from Harris's,
Oh, okay.
Harris's house, across the
I'm
street.
looking west or north.
That land that goes behind where the donkey is, right beside the donkey and
South.
across the street from the
I
Harris's
thought we
big house.
addressed that last year or something.
There was a zoning application. So the property is zone B2, which has, since the 1978, that B2 has allowed for mobile home use. And so that came up earlier this year where y'all removed the mobile home park allowable use from the B2 zoning district. And we turned around, we put in a zoning application to conform to the newly created R3 district created for manufactured home communities, I believe in 2008. And that's what was denied. So forced us into nonconformance. We tried to become conforming and we were denied. However, this project started in 22 when we put in our first applications with the city. And so we've been following those rules and ordinances as of that point, as well as, some that have continued to change along the way. In good faith.
You've already calculated everything that you know how to do to conform to the city.
We have spent- Yes, sir. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. We have acquired drainage easements that we've dedicated to the city. We've gone through engineering processes with TxDOT to ensure Benton City Road had adequate access to come and go in various different rounds back and forth with the city engineers to ensure that our plan meets City of Lidl's codes of ordinances.
Okay, and Carter, if I'm not mistaken on this map, you're going to have apartments in one section, is that correct?
No apartments.
Okay.
No, only manufactured
How
home
many,
lots.
I see 3 entrance ways to this property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you're going to have, say, 2 cars per house. That's 350 approximately
Mhm.
cars trying to get on 3175, a 2-lane road. Have you got information from DOT that they're going to widen that to 4-lane or
We're
something?
doing it. So we're actually widening Benton City Road to add a turn lane that's going to extend all the way from El Camino Real up to that second entrance you see as if you're coming from I-35.
Still be 2-lane?
So it would be 2-lane, then we have our additional lane.
The turn
so,
lane.
So I guess that's, turn lane.
So everywhere the turn lane's not, then you've got all that traffic trying to get into 2 lanes.
Well, the turn lane's there, so it's 3 lanes, so that those coming in and out of the community have access to that lane. And that's in working with
That
TxDOT.
doesn't count for all the people coming off 3175 out there. That's a lot of cars.
That's the process we went through with TxDOT and the city to ensure that the incremental impact of traffic created from our development was adequately solved on a proportionate basis.
So with 350 cars coming out of there, and then all having to try to get to the light or go to HEB, can you imagine what the light's going to be up there? At 8 o'clock in the morning when they're going to the school?
I can. And so as TxDOT and so as the City of Lidl engineers, as we've gone through this process to ensure that it can be addressed.
Well, that's good for you to say here, but when the development's put in and we've got cars to the interstate out there waiting on that light to change, it's going to be a little late.
There's continued growth all around Lytle, and I think that's something I hope the city's thinking long-term on their transportation plan.
We have about 4 or 5 housing additions, not just this one.
I understand.
And
So that's a lot of
every one of
impacts.
these lights are going to be this way in 3 years.
That's not unique to my project.
I know that's not your project, but it's reality
Right.
that you have to think about those things. And is there any other roads that will go into that trailer park planned?
So though there's the three
For the
main
city?
entrances.
Do you know that, Mr. Meadows?
So for the proposal, there's only the 3 entrances. One is an existing Rodeo Street, if you're familiar with that area. 2 of them are. So Rodeo and Short, right? So they'll be proposed to be repaved and widened, I think, a little bit on those particular. And then a third entrance to the north side of the property is the new entrance. So that it's just those 3. So
Does their plan
By
include,
MHR over there?
does their plan include what they have? Does it include the text dot?
I don't think it does. No. It's just whatever was.
Right on the plat piece. There's the construction document piece, which would show all that, versus the plat, which is just the perimeter.
Okay, I just don't want us to be caught surprised when it
Understood.
happens and all of a sudden they said, well, that was all in the plan.
Understood.
Because we have to live with it. We, the people that live here.
Understood.
And the people in the trailer park have to live with it because they're the ones that's going to be having the majority of the congestion.
Mhm.
It'll just result in everybody having it. Mr. Meadows, I'd like to ask one thing there. In this paperwork, it also said that there was one thing that did not meet up to the requirements that needed to be changed or corrected or something. Can you explain what that is?
Yes, I can, and I think the attorney as well is welcome to explain more as well. But through the review of everything, staff is determining that because our zoning ordinance indicated mobile home park was allowable in the B2 zoning district. We feel like the only thing that the property or the development was vested in was the ability to have mobile homes and not manufactured homes, given the requirements that are laid out in state law, distinguishing what the 2 differences are. And so we feel like, although not a subdivision platting matter, we still feel that it is something that needs to be corrected, since they have clearly indicated that is something that they want to move forward with as far as doing manufactured and not what we believe they're vested in, which is mobile home. Is that fair?
That can be corrected?
I'm sorry.
That can be corrected?
So yeah, so I'm standing in for Molly Solis tonight, so I'm the attorney here for P&Z. And if y'all want to talk about this in executive session, we can. But if you want me to give legal advice in open session, I could do that. It's up to y'all.
I want to do an executive session.
Okay. Very good.
Before we don't break the executive session, I just want to make sure there's balance in the presentation. Mr. Trump got to come up and speak again, and sort of blocked our view of your reactions to what he was saying. I'd like at least a little bit of opportunity to address 2 things that he said. I want to make sure it resonates with the 3 of you before we go into executive session and come back out for us to take action.
And I would also like to speak to the item that he just brought up regarding the difference between mobile home and manufactured home. So I think it's very
Okay, when you started this, was it put down as, I know you've got it vested in this, okay? Was it put down as mobile homes? Or was it put down as manufactured homes?
Our preliminary plat approved in July of 2023, early 2023, included the distinction of HUD code manufactured home. I conducted a town hall where I invited the entire city to come out and check our project. And in there, I went into the difference between HUD code manufactured home and a mobile home, and that this project was HUD code manufactured home. Been very transparent on the fact that these are HUD code manufactured homes. Frankly, you don't want mobile homes. Mobile homes built before 1976 are not a quality product. And if you're going to deny our application with the basis that you would rather us bring in mobile homes built before 1976, I don't think that's within the benefit of anybody. I think we can all agree that we don't want that product there.
So the mobile homes, the mobile homes were pre-76?
Correct. The legal definition that Mr. Meadows is referring to,
Okay, so
which was recently
now,
adopted.
are they the same thing except name change?
Basically. And at the time that the B2 zoning district was created, the HUD code manufactured home term didn't exist. And that was adopted with the city at the first time in 2008. And then recently, within the last couple of months, the city has fully adopted the differences between mobile home and HUD code manufactured home.
Is that to say that the mobile homes of 76 that just got a name change, they're made the same way that they're made today?
So HUD,
As a manufactured home?
so the HUD stepped in 1976 and started regulating those building processes. And that's why it's the important distinction.
Okay, will there be any HUD homes in there?
They would all be HUD code manufactured homes, which are the modern, well-built homes that you'd see at any dealership, around town and in the existing Harris Park. There might be one or two that were built before 1976, but when you think of the negative stigmas associated with trailer park, and I use that term because prior to 1976, that's what they were. They're mobile homes that had various different names. Those are the negative aspects of a mobile home versus a HUD code manufactured home is the modern product.
Okay, aren't manufactured homes also like the pier and beam?
Yeah, correct. They're set on pier and beam.
Okay, but you'd be pulling in like newer, what they'd call a mobile home.
We'd be bringing in newly built HUD code manufactured homes.
So like the pier and beam.
They're set on pier and beam. They have a steel chassis. And then they are set on pier and beam, strapped down. And they have skirting. They have porches. 1676 is the standard single wide. They also come in double wides. Which you can get as big as 32 by 76.
So all of these are gonna be manufactured homes.
Correct. I don't want to bring in pre-1976 homes. That's what the city's stance is to require with the recent adoption of the differences between the two.
And I assume that the city's requirements with fire plugs and all that will be incorporated into the plan already.
We've gone through that process with the city engineer to ensure adequate.
Okay, nothing else? We Go to executive session.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Reinitiate my request that we get some balance here because it literally blocked the view and he said some things that I think require balance.
It's up to, it's up to you all how much information you may get and develop or not. So you can see, both y'all can decide that. All the questions.
Okay. Okay, going to executive session, 7:24. Okay, we're coming out of executive session at 7:56. Nothing was decided. Okay, are there any more questions?
No, I don't.
Do you have anything else to say?
I do. Just very briefly, because it's been a long night, but Mr. Simmons asked about, well, what would the fence look like? I think someone else asked, what would the sound barrier look like? And what I heard was maybe an 8-foot game fence and they grow vegetation. And, that's not going to be an effective sound barrier for how close some of these plats are currently put next to the line. And, I'm hopeful that you deny tonight, and if he does come back, we talk about a meaningful sound barrier, maybe a masonry wooden fence, more setback. You have that authority to get into that plat plan and really work through it. So, again, I would take staff's recommendation to get that idea. Oh, and the water, they'll take a lot of water.
Yes. If there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion to recommend denial of final plat application due to failure to conform to comprehensive plan and zoning regulations as required by section 36-941 of the city code. Do I hear anyone in favor?
Second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. It has been denied. The recommend, yes, and the recommendation to the city council is to deny it. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?